Deep down, everyone experiences a feeling of unease from time to time, a subtle inner voice that we often try to silence. This is because confronting it can evoke unpleasant sensations. Many of us prefer to avoid this voice, hiding behind distractions or filling our lives with activities to leave no time for reflection. However, this inner discomfort does not disappear. It patiently waits for the right moment to remind us of its presence. And often, what we fear most, be it rejection or judgment, turns out not to be the terrible enemy we imagined. On the contrary, it can become one of the most valuable teachers on our life path. The renowned author and personal growth expert, Louise Hay, repeatedly emphasized that what we try to avoid the most is often what we need to heal. She taught that every experience, even the most painful, contains a hidden message, an invitation to look within ourselves and discover what we have been unwilling to notice. And rejection, despite all the pain it causes, is no exception to this rule. It is important to understand that this is not about embellishing pain with beautiful words or pretending that nothing happened. Rejection is always a painful experience that touches the deepest chords of our soul. It can leave a feeling of inner brokenness, but at the same time, it can become the very turning point we need. It is the moment when, without realizing it, we begin to awaken parts of ourselves that were previously dormant under the weight of fear, insecurity, or excessive complacency. But why does rejection have such a strong impact on us? It's not just about the words of another person, but about what those words reveal within ourselves. The true echo of no that we hear does not come from the outside, but from the inner space where we have not yet achieved self-acceptance. Every time a door closes in front of us, it illuminates those areas of our shadow that we would prefer to hide. Our insecurities, old wounds, and unresolved behavioral patterns. Louise Hay asserted that what irritates us in other people is a reflection of what we have failed to integrate within ourselves. Therefore, when someone rejects us, it is important to ask ourselves not, why did they do it? But what part of me was activated by this event? What do I need to see in myself? Rejection does not come randomly. It appears with surgical precision, precisely when we are ready, even though it may not seem like it, to make an evolutionary leap in our development. Think back to that painful episode when you experienced disappointment. That moment when the ground seemed to disappear from under your feet, when a gaping void gripped your throat, and the thought of your own inadequacy pierced your consciousness. What if I told you that this difficult experience contained the seed of profound transformation? Yes, it was not just a failure, but a hidden opportunity for growth and re-evaluation. Imagine for a moment how often, in striving to please others, you lose touch with your inner self. In the pursuit of approval, you become vulnerable, losing personal power and becoming dependent on the judgments of others, which are beyond your control. It is in this desperate thirst for recognition that you move away from your true essence. Louise Hay, known for her teachings, asserted that unconditional self-acceptance, recognition, and value emanating from within radiate a magnetic force that those around you feel, even if they cannot explain its nature. The paradox is that the more you strive for approval, the further you run away from yourself, obtaining the opposite of what you expect. People distance themselves, sensing your need and instinctively avoiding it. Why? Because need exudes desperation, and the world reacts with rejection. However, when you act from self-sufficiency, confident in your integrity, everything changes. You stop chasing and start attracting. But of course, to reach this point, it is not enough to simply repeat motivational phrases. It is necessary to delve deep within yourself, to face that part of your personality that you hide, condemn, and are ashamed of, that shadow that you try not to notice. Louise Hay tirelessly reminded us that denial only strengthens its power over you, while acceptance transforms. Therefore, the first step to gaining true strength is not in avoiding rejections, but in integrating them as an integral part of the life path. Remember how many times you had to change your essence, put on masks, to meet the expectations of others. How many times have you agreed, silencing your own voice, just to earn approval? And despite all these sacrifices, haven't you been rejected? Rejected not for your true personality, but for the artificial role you played so diligently, for an image that never reflected the real you. Sincere affection, genuine attraction, doesn't arise from clever tricks and manipulations. It stems from the depths of a person's soul who has found harmony within themselves, who accepts both the light and dark sides of their nature, and who has stopped seeking validation of their worth in the eyes of others. It is this kind of energy that endows a person with magnetism, an allure that cannot be ignored. And this magnetism, as Louise Hay asserted, appears when you unconditionally love yourself, when you choose to be authentic, even if your aspirations do not meet with universal approval. We live in a world where everyone craves attention, where people desperately seek love as if their lives depend on it. But you have the opportunity to choose a different path. You can abandon the role of supplicant. You can confidently go your own way, even if you have to walk alone for a while. Remember that solitude is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of clarity. It is a time when you can restore your strength, a time when those around you begin to feel that something has changed in you. It is here that refusal reveals its true purpose. Paradoxically, every time life tells you no, it opens up new opportunities. Not to give up, but to stop, to look deep within yourself, and to honestly ask, why do I need the approval of others so much? What part of me feels incomplete without external validation? And most importantly, why do I give such power to people who often cannot cope with their own emotions and decisions? Refusal does not come to break you, but to shake you up, to make you see what you stubbornly did not want to notice. Louise Hay spoke about this very clearly. Any uncomfortable experience is a call from your soul. Refusal, however unpleasant, is a powerful tool for self-discovery, forcing us to abandon self-deception and destroy the illusory constructs erected to avoid internal contradictions. Each no we hear acts like a mirror, mercilessly exposing our weaknesses, emotional dependencies, and the urgent need for personal transformation. Such a collision with reality may cause discomfort, but it also gives us strength because awareness of the problem is the first step towards solving it. Stop fearing refusal, avoiding it. Start seeing it as a key to gaining inner freedom. Every time one door closes before you, an opportunity arises to open another, a door to yourself, to self-esteem, based not on reflection in the eyes of others, but on your own truth. This path will not be quick and easy. Louise Hay, an outstanding psychologist, emphasized that true healing begins with daily work on oneself, with accepting oneself in all fullness, with all the virtues and shortcomings. It is from this acceptance that genuine transformation is born. Real attraction arises not when we adapt to other people's expectations, but when we free ourselves from this necessity and begin to move in the direction that we ourselves need. This is true freedom, an indomitable force, gained only when we break the invisible threads that bind us to other people's opinions. A life based on personal truth, even when it diverges from the generally accepted, is a manifestation of inner strength. Sincerity requires no explanation. It is felt on a level of feeling. It is this that truly attracts, a person who is true to themselves, despite the seeming opposition of the world. Someone who has learned to be alone with themselves, not out of a sense of submission, but out of a conscious choice. Such solitude is not emptiness, but fullness, a source of pure magnetism. When you reach this state, when you comprehend this depth of truth, rejection loses its power, because you have regained what no one can give you, your own worth. And here comes the most telling moment. In the pursuit of recognition from others, we often overlook the most insidious and destructive refusal, the refusal of oneself. How many times have we neglected our true desires to conform to other people's expectations, which do not reflect our essence? How many times have we suppressed the voice of intuition, fearing condemnation, criticism, or rejection? This self-imposed refusal is the most dangerous. It does not shout, but whispers, penetrating every day through our decisions, our silence, our concessions. The world doesn't reject us the most. We do it ourselves every time we give up our dreams, when we betray our principles for the sake of illusory belonging. Louise Hay asserted that internal dialogue has more power than any external word. And if this inner voice is critical, cruel, and merciless, then we ourselves erect our emotional prison with our own thoughts. This is the root of the problem. The point is not to achieve recognition from others, but to learn to accept oneself, even in moments of weakness and vulnerability. Before that happens, our shadow, that part of ourselves we ignore, reject, or hide, will continue to make decisions for us from the darkness of the subconscious. The shadow is not an enemy to be eradicated, but rather an ally yearning to be understood. It is a fragment of the soul that requires not condemnation, but healing and acceptance. Take an unbiased look at your life, and you will discover patterns, recurring scenarios in relationships, conflicts that arise again and again. This is not a mere coincidence, but a reflection of your shadow striving for recognition. Each repetition is a missed message, a plea that you stubbornly ignore. But what will happen if you stop resisting and start paying attention? What will happen if you dare to face your deepest fears? This is where the true magic of depth psychology comes into play. The moment you stop running from your own chaos and decide to explore it, you cease searching for answers in the external world and delve into the exploration of your inner self. Yes, you will discover unsightly sides, but at the same time, you will uncover within yourself an inexhaustible source of strength that you never even suspected existed. After all, it is in these hidden corners that your true potential lies dormant. The paradox is obvious. The more you strive to avoid self-knowledge, the further you distance yourself from yourself. Conversely, the more courage you show to face your fears head-on, the closer you come to finding inner harmony and strength. Are you ready to hear the truth that few dare to accept? Most people live their lives without knowing their true selves. They hide behind masks, imitate others, pretend, just to avoid looking into the mirror of their own soul. In this mad chase to conform to others' expectations, they lose themselves, turning into pale copies of what they think others want to see, and ultimately lose their uniqueness. And here comes the turning point. At this point of deep self-analysis, we approach one of the most difficult, yet transformative lessons. When you have the courage to face your own shadow, without hiding behind excuses, and accept it rather than fight it, magic happens. The fear of being rejected, this age-old nightmare, loses its power because it becomes crystal clear. The scariest rejection is not external, but the one we have prepared for ourselves. Having overcome this internal barrier, having stopped tormenting ourselves with doubts, words, and judgments, No external storms will be able to break us. This is true freedom, not indifference or detachment, but wisdom and emotional maturity. It is the realization that your value does not depend on someone else's opinion, that you are self-sufficient. Louise Hay spoke about this directly. We came into this world not to ask for approval, but to express ourselves in all fullness. Love for oneself is not selfishness, but the foundation on which everything else is built. When you approve of yourself, when you choose yourself with confidence, a miracle happens. You become attractive, not because you are trying to be, but because you are. We are surrounded by people who go out of their way to please, adapting their essence to other people's frameworks. But only a few truly accept themselves. And when you do, you stand out. Not by appearance, but by what you radiate. This sincere confidence, this inner peace, cannot be faked. It is felt, it is sensed. It is pure energy that does not need words. Remember those you admire, those you can't take your eyes off, who change the atmosphere in the room with their mere presence. What do they have in common? Why do they shine so brightly without trying? The answer is simple. Once they made the decision to stop living for someone else's approval, stopped betraying their essence, and put their values above the expectations of society. And they did it despite the fear. After all, as Louise Hay said, resisting your shadow is a feat. And only those who dared to do this live by their own rules, not by someone else's dictates. This is their secret, and it can become yours. These people do not use tricks to attract attention. They do not manipulate, do not impose themselves, do not pursue. They just stopped pursuing themselves, stopped looking outside for what they found inside. And this peace, this tranquility that they radiate, acts like a magnet. In a world craving attention, those who are self-sufficient become an emotional oasis. The paradox is beautiful. The less you need someone else's approval, the more you get it. The less you strive to please, the more you charm, because you are not trying to fit in, you simply are. And that is a rarity these days. Do you want to know the essence of this truth? Listen carefully. When you give up the obsessive search for external confirmation, something changes at a deep level. You stop being a leaf in the wind, reacting to everything that happens around you. You begin to live from within, from a solid center, from an inner connection that no one can destroy. And the world notices because it sees authenticity in you, so rare and valuable that it becomes irresistible. It's as if you've been searching for a long time for the key to the door to love, success, and peace. And then you discover that it was always in your pocket, waiting for you to stop looking outside yourself. Imagine something even more powerful. What will happen if you decide right now to choose yourself? Not as a symbolic gesture, but truly with all the risks and rewards. What will happen if you cast aside the fear of disappointing others? If you stop living under the weight of other people's expectations? If you look at yourself without embellishment, without emotional makeup, needing no one's approval but your own? I assure you, something will change in the very depths of your being. After all, behind the fear of being rejected lies your true essence, that part of you that has been waiting for recognition for years and that only you can save. Take these words as a call to action. Don't waste another day seeking approval where you will never find it. Don't wait for confirmation from those who haven't learned to accept themselves. Look at rejection for what it is, a message from the universe, a sign that it's time to wake up. After all, when you stop needing, you start attracting. When you stop asking, you start ruling your life. And if you've reached this point, It means you're ready to ask yourself the most important question. What would you do if you knew for sure that you didn't need anyone's approval to be happy? What kind of life would you build? What decisions would you make? What dreams would you pull out of oblivion? There, in that answer, is freedom, real power. And once you cross that threshold, there's no going back. After all, as Louise Hay said, when you learn to love and accept yourself completely, you discover what you always suspected but haven't yet truly experienced. You don't need anyone to feel whole, because you already are. You've always carried it within you, like a dormant volcano, and the moment of awakening has inevitably arrived. By no means is rejection a sinister verdict that puts an end to your aspirations, nor is it a stigma that testifies to inner inferiority. Rather, it is a persistent call, a veiled opportunity, a secret door that will only open to those who are ready to look deep within themselves with impartial honesty. The question is not whether you will avoid rejections, they are inevitable, like the sunrise, but how you will meet their inevitable appearance. Will you continue to languidly wait for someone from the outside to approve your path? Or will you take the reins of power into your own hands and become the creator of your own destiny, defining who you are and who you aspire to become? Louise Hay, the wise mentor, taught us that every rejection is, in essence, a challenge to our authenticity, a test of the strength of our true essence. And this challenge is accepted by few because it involves a painful rejection of familiar masks, a rejection of hypocritical actions performed for the sake of universal love and recognition, and the beginning of a life based on truth, even if that truth still trembles timidly inside. And here comes the uncomfortable truth, one of those that burn with its revelation upon first acquaintance. The true pain we experience when rejected is not the opinion of another person as such. No, it is the echo of that opinion, painfully resonating within us, stirring up the deepest wounds. The pain arises because, deep down, we subconsciously agree with this opinion, with that very inner voice that tirelessly repeats that we are not good enough. It is this inner conflict that tears us apart. Not someone else's judgment, but only a reflection of our own insecurity, projected into the gaze of another person. But this is where the source of our strength lies. This pain is the key to healing, because it is where it hurts that there is a wound that has not yet received due attention and care. Rejection does not come to humiliate you or trample on your dignity, but to surgically pinpoint the very place where you still have to love yourself more. Every time fate presents us with a rejection, it is as if the universe is handing us a treasure map. This map points us to those corners of our soul that desperately need attention, to those hidden emotions that crave release. However, unfortunately, many of us prefer to ignore these valuable clues. We hide behind carefully constructed masks, lull ourselves with a stream of distractions, and tell ourselves soothing stories just to avoid facing the painful reality. But it should be remembered that postponing the meeting with the truth only prolongs our suffering. If we truly aspire to gain the incredible power that only a few possess, we need to muster the courage to face our deepest fears. We should not avoid them. We should not block these dark sides with empty phrases or hypocritical statements. Instead, look intently at them, accept them with love, and listen carefully to their message. The great Louise Hay repeatedly spoke about the importance of this integration process, emphasizing that only by accepting our shadow do we cease to be its slaves. It is in this act of courage, in the confrontation with our inner voids, without running away from them, that our true strength is born. After all, Then we stop acting for the approval of others and begin to live for our own healing. In our era, an era of ostentatious success, rejections are skillfully masked behind filters, inspiring quotes, and carefully edited publications. We are sold the image of ideal success, but its unsightly truth is hidden. People feign confidence, but deep down they live in constant fear. And in this deafening noise of false facades, our soul gradually drowns. But what if we do something radically opposite? What if we proudly display our scars? What if, instead of hiding our vulnerability, we turn it into our hallmark? What happens if we openly admit, yes, I was rejected. I doubted myself. I was afraid. But I still kept moving forward. This is not a manifestation of weakness, but authenticity, sincerity. And authenticity, like a magnet, attracts people. After all, the more we try to appear perfect, the less we find a response in the hearts of others. People feel the truth, even if they cannot explain it. And what really impresses, what leaves an indelible mark in the memory, is not a polished image, but a lived, felt truth. Stop hiding your rejections, as if it were a shameful stain that needs to be hidden from prying eyes. Start seeing them as well-deserved medals of emotional war, not because you glorify pain, but because you recognize that you have gone through it, and it has made you stronger. But let's be honest, this is not about romanticizing suffering and not about falling into the position of a victim. This is not about turning into a martyr, but about becoming a conscious being, an emotional warrior who has stopped being afraid of his wounds because he has already studied them, understood them, and overcome them. This is where true strength lies. Triumph over rejection, the path to true freedom. When the bitterness of rejection ceases to corrode the very essence of yourself, when you gain the ability to accept it without devastating consequences, a completely new, previously unexplored degree of freedom opens up before you. At this moment, in the very depths of your being, you learn a lesson that transforms your entire future life. Your inner value can under no circumstances depend on external assessments and the approval of others. As the outstanding Louise Hay tirelessly repeated for many years, you have subjected yourself to merciless criticism for years, and this has not brought the desired results. Why not try to approve and support yourself now? See what comes of it. Emotional dependence is like shackling you with chains, depriving you of strength, diminishing the scale of your personality, and setting invisible boundaries. While unconditional love for yourself, on the contrary, expands horizons, strengthens the inner core, and gives wings to fly. And rejection, if you allow it, will become that purifying flame that mercilessly destroys all that you are no longer, so that you can be reborn in your true form, whole, valuable, and self-sufficient. Let me make my point very clear. I am not at all urging you to fence yourself off from the world with an impregnable wall or hide in voluntary seclusion. It is not about turning into an emotional hermit, losing the ability to feel and establish deep connections with other people. On the contrary, the point is to learn how to build relationships with others, based on a state of inner integrity and unwavering self-confidence. A state where you no longer need constant approval, but strive for genuine, sincere connections. Relationships that are born not out of acute need and desperate search, but out of a sense of inner fullness and self-sufficiency. Have you noticed how the most significant and fateful relationships in our lives, as a rule, arise precisely when we stop feverishly looking for them, when we let go of the situation and allow events to unfold on their own? This is the quiet but incredibly powerful law of the universe. When you stop desperately pursuing what you want, everything you really need begins to find you on its own. However, Be extremely careful, because this is not at all a call to passivity and inaction. It's not about passively waiting for rewards from fate, for the mere fact of existence. The point is different: to live with unbridled passion, with selfless devotion to your goal, so that there is no room in your mind and heart for worrying about the opinions of others. To occupy your niche in the world with such confidence that any rejections bounce off, finding no chink in your armor. Yes, failures are inevitable, but their impact fades. They no longer have power over your identity. And now I suggest thinking about a paradoxical but important question. Imagine that all your dreams have come true. Absolutely everything. Every goal achieved, every desire fulfilled. Everyone you wanted to see next to you says yes. There is no longer the word no in your life. And what's next? Honestly answer yourself, what will happen then? That's right. You will feel emptiness, a strange silence, because sooner or later you will realize that external achievements are not able to fill the inner void. And here it is, the truth that turns everything upside down. True satisfaction never comes from the outside. It always lives inside you, in a deep act of self-acceptance, allowing yourself to be yourself. And here you realize the trap. If everything you are looking for is inside, why wait for confirmation from others? Why do you attach so much importance to other people's opinions? The answer is simple and complex at the same time. Because of fear. Fear of realizing that the fullness of life depends only on you. Fear of admitting that there are no more excuses, no one to blame, no external saviors. This will leave you alone with yourself, without masks and illusions. But this is where your strength lies, in the realization that no one will come to save you from emotional torment. And when you accept this, something inside you changes forever. You no longer wait for what you can give yourself from the outside. You are no longer dependent. You are free. So, what is the main secret of the experience of rejection? Listen carefully. Only when you deeply realize that you do not need anything from the outside to feel complete, you begin to attract what is in tune with your true essence. You attract not out of need, but out of your own choice. And although the difference seems insignificant, it fundamentally changes everything. You stop wandering around the world with your hand outstretched, begging for approval, recognition, or love. You move forward confidently, calmly, and purposefully, knowing for sure that your value has never been questioned. Most people are content with short-term doses of superficial approval, muffle the pain with praise, and avoid deep emotional collisions. But you are not the majority. If you have reached this point, it means that you have chosen the path that the minority takes, the path of self-knowledge, the search for root causes, the rejection of external games, and the beginning of domination in the internal. There are no spectators in this game. This is a path that is walked in silence, alone with yourself. This is where the true alchemy takes place. After all, when you conquer your inner world, everything external is transformed, not because you forced it, but because you no longer need it. And now the question sounds different. Are you ready to accept this truth? Are you ready to change your attitude to rejection and turn it into your most powerful teacher? If this reflection has touched something inside you, if some phrase has sparked a spark in your mind, then you are ready to take the next step.